Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Indie Zone. My name is Kathy. Ever since we launched the Idaho versus Kohberger podcast addressing the filings in the court case, beginning with the start of the case, its inception back on December 29th, 2022, through the court's closure of the case on July 23rd, 2025, we have emphasized the facts. And every so often on our YouTube channel, we will test our knowledge of the facts by offering quizzes. We've did one today in light of the significant amount of media attention in the general public regarding the case that was reignited due to some events that occurred within the past week. We invited you to test knowledge of the facts of the Idaho versus Kohberger case. The question that was presented was, there has been discussion in the general public if Mr. Kohberger will appeal his sentence. In the past, the matter of Idaho versus Kohberger has been before the Idaho Supreme Court, and it asked for a response. 4 choices that were given to this inquiry were once. The second choice was twice. The third choice was 3 times, and the fourth choice was never. In other words, the question again was, there has been discussion in the general public if Mr. Kohberger will appeal his sentence. In the past, the matter of Idaho versus Kohberger has been before the Idaho Supreme Court. Option number 1, once. Option 2, twice. Option 3, 3 times. Option 4, never. I'm going to go ahead and give a spoiler alert because the answer to this quiz is going to be given here in just a moment. If you haven't taken the quiz, this might be a good time to pause this podcast episode. Go ahead and take the quiz. We have the link in the description to this podcast episode, and come back after you've taken it. The correct answer to this quiz question: the matter of Idaho versus Kohberger has been before the Idaho Supreme Court 2 times so far in the history of the case. The first time that it happened was back in 2023. This was when the Media Coalition filed an action in the Idaho Supreme Court. It is styled as Associated Press et al. Versus Second Judicial Circuit. And what it dealt with was the non-dissemination, aka gag order, that was put into effect in the case. There have been 3 versions of this gag order during the pendency of the entire case until Judge Stephen J. Hippler set it aside. We did a podcast episode on this way back, episode number 59. It is entitled Idaho Supreme Court's Ruling on Media Coalition Request for Relief from Non-Dissemination Order. So that's the first time. When was the second time that this case came before the Idaho Supreme Court? Well, that happened a little bit later in the proceedings. This was a result of Mr. Kohberger's motion for change of venue, which he filed back on January 30th, 2024, seeking to have the case moved from where it was originally instituted, the Second Judicial District in Latah County, which is where Moscow is located. But Mr. Kohberger, concerned about pretrial publicity, filed a motion with the court, asked for venue to be changed. And there was a series of filings, hearings that happened for a good part of 2024 dealing with Mr. Kohberger's motion until ultimately in September of 2024, Judge John Judge, who was then the preceding jurist in the case, granted that motion for change of venue. But what Judge did was he left it up to the Idaho Supreme Court to determine where the case should go. And that resulted in a court order from the Idaho Supreme Court appointing Ada County. The Idaho Supreme Court specifically appointed Judge Stephen J. Hippler to be the jurist in the case. Judge Hippler became the third judge in the case after Judge Marshall, Judge, then it was Judge Hippler, and he presided through its closure July 23rd, 2025. He is still presiding over the case with some post-closure matters. The correct answer to the quiz is that this matter was before the Idaho Supreme Court twice thus far. Until next time, this is Kathy. Thank you for joining us here today.